We made it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We survived the entire Arizona State basketball season. Welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils. Shawn, Anthony Totri, this guy right here. That is Erik Ruby. We have Captain Redbeard behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. Do a solid, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, we are going to spend this evening talking about your Arizona State Sun Devils and their performance in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, which I don't know if you saw it, Erik.
Their performance in the first round of the Big 12 tournament?
They did indeed lose.
No.
They did.
No.
Yes, Coleman Hawkins and company.
Tell me it ain't so.
Were too much to handle. 71-66, Kansas State over Arizona State, effectively closing the door on Bobby Hurley's first season in the Big 12 with Arizona State basketball. Could it be the last, or will Hurley be back? A question that we will certainly answer throughout tonight's show. But before we get into all of the Hurley discussion, I feel like it's only fair that we actually talk about the game for a little bit and get into what we saw from that. Starting off with the fact that Coleman Hawkins, pretty much unguardable for Arizona State tonight.
He was worth that money tonight. I'll tell you that. He was worth that money tonight. You know, credit to Arizona State. Listen, man, this was one of the most brutal seasons of basketball I've ever watched with my own two eyes. And I think part of that was the fact that they were doing so good at the non-con play, and there was hope and there was expectations. Oh my God, am I on a Suns post-game show right now? Oh my gosh. Sorry, I just had a little flashback sitting in the studio. But, you know, this team did not give up. And I know we're not going to talk about the details with Bobby and whatnot. I don't love all the things that Bobby does as a coach, but I will say this. I don't think that any of the players that were still playing today gave up. And they are in a situation where they clearly could have done that. Like 6 players in the rotation, Adam Miller not playing in the second half. And you got just a barrage of threes rained against you at the beginning, and you were down a lot, double digits early in like a couple minutes, right? And it's very easy for that to mentally just shut a team down, and they didn't do it. Now, they still lost, but they fought, they stayed in it. I don't know if they ever led. They might have led a little bit, but
let's see.
Basically trailing the whole game, if not the entire game, that is, I won't say impressive, but
ASU led for a minute and 25 seconds.
So for a 40th of the game. So I will say on an individual level, good on the players for not giving up, but this result was expected. And it's disappointing, and this whole season is disappointing given the talent that was getting brought in and how we talked about them, 8 months ago.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's something that, again, we've done a really good job of mentioning, I think, for every post game so far, right, is you could take the result of what we saw and we can kind of, I don't want to say dismiss it, but we can almost remove what we see from the result, right? Because at this point, when you roll out a 6-7 man rotation like Arizona State did for the start of it, you obviously mentioned losing Adam Miller. Like, there is almost an understanding, at least in this office, that it's like, okay, they're going to give it everything they have because that's what they've done the entire time. But odds are they're not going to win this ball game. Now, granted, they, again, tonight, gave you everything that they possibly had. Shawn Phillips tonight had 14 rebounds. Alston Mason with 17 points, right? Joson with 13. Bashir with 13. Like, these guys that were out there tonight literally gave it everything they had, but it's just, it's a story as old as the season. These guys don't have enough.
No.
And there's not enough of them to actually get it done in this conference. And what really, really, really just grinds my gears.
What grinds your gears?
Is the broadcast talking about Bobby Hurley the way that they do. It really does frustrate me. And again, I know we'll get into the Bobby stuff a little bit later, but it blows my mind, some of the discourse around Coach Hurley when it comes to some of these things. And I know there are a lot of U of A folks in the chat that want to see Hurley back, simply to poke fun at ASU. But I mean, you do have to tip your cap, I guess, just for the fact that these guys haven't given up.
No, and there is a lot of that follows on to Bobby too. You got to look at some of these individual players. I mean, Adam Miller, clearly not 100%.
No, absolutely not.
Right, clearly not in a good spot playing tonight. Only 3 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist in 22 minutes. Alston Mason, at this point, you're just struggling because you need so much out of Alston. 17 points, but 4 of 15 from the field. Bashir Jihad, 4 of 13 from the field. Sanon, 6 of 14 is not as bad, but 1 of 5 from deep. Shawn Phillips was the only one who really shot a good percentage, but it's not right now. They don't have enough, right?
No.
And I know we want to talk about this game specifically. Kansas State's not a good team. They're not. When they were playing really well, when ASU played them and lost to them, they were like playing the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah.
Outside of that, they've played like literally the worst team.
And you saw
in
both
the country
of them tonight.
You did. You saw like the first couple of minutes, they were playing like the best team in the country. And then the rest of the game, they were playing just as bad as ASU was.
Yeah.
And right now, it's true that I just feel like there was nothing this team could have done to win. But at the same time, I don't want people to just chalk it up to that, because there was a long stretch of the season where that was not the case. The case was this team has enough to win, but they don't know how to use it. And you mentioned this, once they started losing players, it actually felt like they were a little bit more cohesive because they just had to play with each other. It was the same 5. It feels like the turnovers went down. It feels like the effort went up. It felt like they kind of understood who they were and how they needed to operate as a team. I think the biggest example of that is Shawn Phillips. I think we need to give Shawn Phillips his flowers because we have a unique bottle service later. And Shawn Phillips is maybe the one ASU player from last season, obviously into this season, because he's only one of 2 that carried over. But even if we just take this season, I've been extremely hard on Shawn Phillips. Like he has not been somebody that I have been impressed with at multiple points this season. But for the past couple of weeks, maybe the last month and a half, he has really shown that he can step up and use his athleticism and use his size when he's needed to. Yeah. Is he a perfect player? No. But as a junior, he's played himself into a person who I would not be upset to see back on this team next year. I mean, just look at today. He had 14 rebounds and 11 points with 3 blocks tonight and a steal and only, let's see, how many fouls? Only 3 fouls and played only 29 minutes tonight. But very impactful 29 minutes from Shawn Phillips. So you can find some beauty and some success of individual players. And yes, the injuries really screwed them. The BJ Freeman dismissal really screwed them. But this team was already in a really crappy position going into that. So you kind of have to find a way to balance the two as a fan.
100%, right? And I think this is, again, peeling back the layers from this game. You've seen everything that you've seen over the course of this season, I think, in one game, right? You saw a team really that focuses in on playing one really good half in Arizona State this season, or at least that was the case in Big 12 play, right? This is a team that we talked how many times would play a really good half against Kansas, or a really good half against Iowa State, or a really good half against Baylor, and then they would fall apart. And today I thought that they were better. Today I thought they played nearly a solid 1.5 halves of tournament basketball. But the very first 10 minutes of this basketball game, it was raining threes from Kansas State. Their first 5 shots were all threes, and all 5 went in. Like, that's a tough way to start this game, knowing where you're at as a team, right? From a mentality standpoint. Think about it. Think about these players going into this game knowing what they know, right? Knowing the chips are stacked against you, knowing that half of your guys that you started the season with are either sitting at home because they're injured or have been dismissed from the team. And you're going into this game, no one's picking you to win. You've heard everything you could possibly hear from us to other media to whatever, saying, hey, you're giving it your all, but unfortunately your all just simply isn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And to go out there and still perform the way they did despite a barrage of threes by Coleman Hawkins and company to start this game, like, I think they proved something today. Not this team, but I think individually.
Mm-hmm.
I think each one of these guys proved something. And it's something that I think whether they decide to play at Arizona State next season, whether they opt to transfer, they showed their value today. And they've showed it for the last couple of weeks. And the value, not even on the stat sheet, but just like, hey, we are not going to give up. Alston Mason could have 100% at any point said, you know what, I'm tired of playing 40 minutes a game, dude. I'm done doing it. I'm not going to waste my body on a team that I know is not going to go anywhere. Shawn Phillips could 100% say, dude, I'm playing 30 minutes a night. I'm the only big that we have on this team. Start paying me some more money or I'm going to sit on the bench.
Yeah, and you do feel for, I mean, obviously Shawn Phillips is a junior, but senior, Alston Mason, senior, Bashir Jihad, even beforehand, senior, BJ Freeman as well. Adam Miller, senior. I mean, this was their last college basketball game that they ever played.
Yeah.
That's tough to keep your head up through that and to kind of feel that inevitable closing in on you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're all going to go try to play pro, but none of those guys are NBA prospects. No. They all have skill and they all have talent, but I'm sorry, Alston Mason, I don't think you're 6'2". And I don't think you're making it to the league. I think you could be a pro. I think you'd be a pro player overseas, but who knows, right? That might be the last quote unquote professional basketball game or paid basketball game that those players play.
Could be.
And Adam Miller gave it his all, right? And then you think of the freshmen. Think about what, obviously Jaden Quain's not out there, but think about what Joson, Sanon, and Amir Ali felt like they were walking into this season. If you fast forward right now, and I mentioned this to you, if I told you 8 months ago that our first and basically only sub in the Big 12 tournament was somebody who was playing high school basketball in December,
I would have said something very wrong happened.
And something very wrong did happen.
Yeah.
Right? And Trevor Best, you have to salute Trevor Best. You have to salute these other freshmen. They're making the most out of a bad situation, but that's still not enough. Like Joson Sanon, for the sake of his own career, has to truly evaluate what's the best spot for him. And maybe he picks ASU. And maybe that's tied to the Bobby Hurley news that we got earlier today. Same thing with Trevor Best. Same thing with Jaden Quaintance. Same thing with Amir Ali. You feel for these guys who came into this thinking, okay, best recruiting class in the history of Bobby Hurley, who has had some pretty good recruiting classes, really good transfer portal class with talented players from lower level colleges who put up numbers all coming together in a new conference in the Big 12 to play against the best of the best.
Yeah.
And you fast forward to here and now where it's not just injuries that got you here, but this game specifically, you just did not have enough firepower. If fully healthy Adam Miller played, if fully healthy BJ Freeman played, if fully healthy Jaden Quaintance played, this is a different result.
It is. I mean, they only lost by 5. They only lost by 5, and they only had 6 guys going into the second half of this game. 6 guys on scholarship, right? You figure part of the reason they were able to beat Kansas State a couple weeks ago is because Jaden Quaintance was playing out of his mind, right? Adam Miller, we know he could be as hot and cold as anybody in the conference, but when he's hot, he's hot. Tonight he was cold and injured.
Yep.
Right? Like, this team is just decimated by injuries. Mentally, you got to figure that also impacts you as a team, right? Like, your guys are dropping like flies.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, you got to just, I think, sit there to yourself and be like, it's just not our year.
Yeah,
right?
and I think you can sense that frustration a little bit.
Yeah, the frustration was there. 100% with Bobby. Bobby's called it the most frustrating season that he's ever been a part of.
Same, brother.
Right? Like literally.
I feel you, man.
And I've watched 3 ASU basketball seasons in a row.
Yeah.
This by far is the most
this
frustrating.
Team in college. Obviously, they were better,
They were much better. At least it seemed like they were much better.
I mean, they were much better.
This team, again, we've said it for a while. Talent is there. But depth matters. Coaching matters. Star power matters. And this team, when it mattered most, didn't have a number of those things, despite what the broadcast would like to tell you. Okay? Look, we've still got so much more to get into. We've got by the numbers. We've got bottle service. We got Saul Bookman calling in. We're going to have some sound from Bobby Hurley and company post-game, I promise.
What do you think Bobby says? What ominous thing do you think Bobby says in post-game?
I think he just says a prayer.
Ye who holds the sword shall not fall to it, or something like that.
Okay. Do you got one more for me?
One more?
Yeah, I want one more. That was good. I want one more.
A man who expects the unexpected never knows what comes around the corner. I don't know.
Wow. Well, we'll tell you what's coming up around the corner right after this quick break.
Allow me to put you all on game. MitoPure. Do you know what MitoPure is, Totri?
Ooh.
No, you don't.
I don't.
You don't know what MitoPure is because our friends over at Timeline have a patented ingredient in their supplements that is a postbiotic nutrient and clears out all the dysfunctional mitochondria, aka your cell's battery packs. You've heard about mitochondria.
All the gunk, yeah.
Right? Everybody's heard about mitochondria. Oh, yeah. But did you know that there are bad parts to the mitochondria as well? And you don't want those in your body.
No, absolutely not.
Listen, it's hard to feel good nowadays. I'm being serious.
Our
food is full of processed crap. Like there's plastic and everything. It's hard to feel good. You need to take care of yourself, and it's better to do that with our friends over at Timeline. MitoPure recharges your cells and helps your body's systems work better. I like it when my body works better. It's the only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate health at a cellular level, and it is shown to deliver double-digit increases in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise. And if you do exercise, well, then you're just doubling up on all that good stuff. Listen, right now with Timeline is giving you 10% off MitoPure order. Go to timeline.com/PHNX today to get started. That's timeline.com/PHNX. The code, you guessed it, PHNX.
Look, you said you like it when your body works better. I like it when my wallet has more money in it. And it tends to have more money in it now that I'm a member of Inner Circle, guys. That is Circle K's free membership program. It is super easy to sign up for, and the deals are absolutely worth it. You could literally do it in the next 30 seconds.
Speaking of deals,
I know
40 cents off per gallon.
That's crazy.
Today.
Absolutely crazy. If you haven't already, go take advantage of the offer. Fill up on gas today. And today's not the only day that you guys can save on gas. When you're a member of Inner Circle, your first 5 fill-ups, you guys can save 25 cents per gallon on those first 5 fill-ups. And then honestly, every single day after that, you guys can save 3 cents per gallon as well. Make sure you join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details.
Got to get me some 40-cent off gas on my way home.
I'm going to see you.
Perfect way to cap off the night. We literally are going to drive the same exact way.
Well, here's the Circle K
Here's the thing. We can go to different Circle Ks because there's like 6 on
There
our
really
drive
is.
home.
How many? Let's see. One. I think there's 2 or 3. I think there might be 3
for me. I think there's 2, and then there's 3, like one right beyond.
Yeah.
There's a lot
the
of
great
Circle Ks,
beyond.
all on one street.
There
We're
you
not
go.
going to tell you what street we live on.
Actually,
Actually, I might because I'm moving, so I'm gonna. I can dox you.
You can't do that to me. Do it to Kyle. Tell everybody where Kyle lives.
Kyle lives in Phoenix.
There you go.
There you go.
Can you confirm or deny, Captain Redbeard?
I live on the earth.
That's breaking news.
Good answer from Captain Redbeard. Guys, I want to hear all your frustrations, all your thoughts, all your feelings about this Arizona State season and what's ahead. Okay? Let me know. Let Erik know in the comments. Slide in Captain Redbeard's DMs. You let him know. While you do that, we are going to go ahead and take a look at By the Numbers, presented by Desert Financial Credit Union, Arizona's #1 credit union, named by Forbes. Rubus, you've been doing this a while now with me. What's the only number that matters?
It's the final score.
It's the final score. Kansas State out-dueling Arizona State 71-66. Alston Mason, the leading scorer for the Devils, was 17. And then you had Hawkins on the other side, who was just too much to handle. 26 for him on that side. Look, Kansas State shot the lights out. 50% from the floor. Arizona State, 30%. on 60 shots, only 23 makes. Tough for Hurley squad. 3-point land. It's been a struggle for Arizona State all year, and it was a struggle again tonight. 27%, just 7 of 26 from behind the arc. 44% for Kansas State, 8 of 18, and then points in the paint. 36 for Hawkins and company, and then 24 for the Devils. Any of those numbers stick out, or do you have another one?
I mean, I think the craziest thing is how on fire Kansas State was from 3 early, and the fact that they only made 1 more than ASU, and ASU took like 8 more than them.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. And obviously the 3 stopped falling for Kansas State, so they had to pivot. They started attacking, which was the right strategy for them, but I still can't believe that Kansas State only hit 1 more 3 this game than ASU.
They had 5 threes in the first 5 minutes and only made 3 the rest of the game.
It's crazy.
It's absolutely wild. And they still put up 71 points.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is a team in Kansas State that you touched on it at the start of the show, right? They can play with the best of them, and they can play with the worst of them. And tonight, I think you got a little bit of both of what Kansas State has done this season. I think for me, the number that stands out most is not necessarily a team number, but it does have to go to Shawn Phillips. Again, you had mentioned that we have a little bit of a unique bottle service for everybody a little bit later on in the show, but Shawn Phillips' just entire stat line to me just really showcases the growth that he's had this season. I know that you and I have had discussions on air, off air about Bobby Hurley's ability to develop talent and develop these players. I think Shawn Phillips now is a better player than he was at the start of the season. Now, how much of that falls on just simply playing versus Bobby Hurley coaching and development? I think that's something that can certainly be discussed. But Shawn Phillips, to go from starting the season as a guy that was a rotational piece that would play 9-10 minutes a game, would probably have a block, a rebound, and a couple fouls.
Like 4 fouls.
Right? Like to playing in the Big 12 tournament first round in 29 minutes, 5 of 7. He was very efficient. 11 points, 1 of 2 from the charity stripe, 14 rebounds, 3 assists. Like you said, 3 blocks and a steal. Like, I know it wasn't the team's highest score, but he was by far the team's best player tonight. Agreed. And I think since Quaintance has been out, I know Sanon's had his moments, but and Alston Mason's had his moments too. Shawn Phillips has been the most consistent player on this team. Yeah, and I don't think it's been close.
I agree. I think Alston has had higher highs.
Absolutely,
for sure. With that 33 point game. Yeah. When you were taught, did somebody teach you how to swim?
Yes.
Okay. Did you just get? It feels like you were just like a got thrown in the pool kind of guy.
You know, this was such a long time ago that I don't really remember.
Well, there's a couple ways that you can learn how to swim, right? You can have somebody just gently dip you in the water, and you practice your backstroke, and you practice your freestyle, whatever it is. Or you got a parent with a cigarette in their hand throwing you right into the pool. Captain was born knowing how to swim.
Captain was born on a ship
with a cigarette in his hand.
Yes.
I think what happened with Shawn Phillips is he was thrown into the pool.
Yeah. Trial by fire.
And I genuinely think that is like, you can give credit to Bobby if you want. I think it was more of a situational thing to where before there was kind of like, not like a choice, but maybe like a subconscious choice in Shawn Phillips' mind. Well, Jaden Quains is another center. Like, I'm just a piece on this team. Like, maybe I don't need to use my athleticism. The fact that I'm like 7 feet tall, right? Like, there just wasn't that thrown in the pool moment.
Yeah.
And since he got thrown in the pool, he had no choice but to learn how to swim. And he has been doing really well with that. And long term for him specifically, this is probably the best for him in his development. Because I don't think he's an NBA player, but he has an NBA body.
Shawn?
Yeah. Yeah, he has an NBA body. And if this awoke something within him.
If he could shoot the ball and keep his hands to himself.
We saw post-midi Shawn Phillips a couple times. I don't think he's an NBA player, but I do think that he has set himself up now to either come back to this team or draw some interest out there from a transfer portal market as a senior big man. And I don't think that was something that I think just coming back next year would have been really the only thing on the table for
going to maybe a smaller school.
So smaller school, right? But I think that he's proven that he can play power 4 basketball at a high level, maybe be a low-level starter or a high-level backup.
Or a very, very productive backup.
Yeah, and that is not something that I would have been saying 3 months ago.
No, I think a dream scenario, right? And we'll get into next year and what that holds roster-wise, coaching-wise. Remove the coach for a second, right, from this conversation.
That is the dream scenario.
I think Shawn Phillips returning alongside Jaden Quaintance is a phenomenal situation to have at your big spot. I don't think that after what I have seen, I know Quaintance can be a 5. I love him at the 4.
Yeah, if he can, that was my initial thought was you need a big who can shoot. And if Quaintance is able to work now, the thing is, you assume that in the offseason somebody can work, but we're still waiting to learn about the extent of his injury. And it's really hard to practice shooting if you can't move around. And you can stand still and shoot and he has a pretty set shot. But if his leg is messed up, if he can't move around and do things, I don't have a lot of faith in that jumper coming a long way between now and next season. So I think that's a little tough. I'd like to, if those two are there, having a Bashir Jihad archetype where a bigger player who could shoot the 3 and spread that offense out a little bit that could play with either of them. But we saw them both share the court together. And in college basketball, that can be a suffocating defense.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I do think moving forward, again, if Quaintance and Phillips were to return to this team next year, I think you still need to go add another true center.
That can shoot.
That I don't even know if they, in my estimation, if you obviously you'll take anyone that can shoot.
Yes,
but I'm not going to be banging on the door for a center that could shoot. I think you can certainly go into next season and say, hey, Shawn Phillips is our starting 5. If you get Quaintance back, he's our 4, and you got a backup 5.
Okay.
Or maybe you get a guy that is almost a tweener and can play somewhere in between that 5-4 spot, right? Like I think again, and we're looking much toward the future, but like you said, that's
what
not
else are we supposed to do?
Well, that's not something that we would have said about Shawn Phillips, right?
No,
at
not
the start
at
of the season. And I know he's not the one getting bottle service tonight, but he certainly deserves his flowers, like you said. You got to tip your cap to Alston Mason and some of these younger guys with what they've been able to do, right? A Joson Sanon and Amir Ali. This is not the season that they expected, I don't think, by any means, right? We heard Joson Sanon when he committed to Arizona State. Hey, I'm one and done. Better enjoy what you get out of me.
That feels like 6 years ago, man.
Yeah, and there's questions to be had there. Does Joson Sanon transfer? Does he come back? Does he enter the draft? Like, there are so many things that Joson Sanon can do, I think, at this point.
I feel like out of all the freshmen, I just gut feeling, I will say this, so I am not a reporter. I think he's the least likely to come back because for his skill set, it is very clear, especially if the Bobby Hurley news is true, which is, again, it's a really weird middle ground on what's been going on with that news where it's like, yeah, he's not going to be fired, but they're not going to say. Anyway, if he is back next year, Bobby Hurley's system is not meant to get the most out of somebody like Joson Sanon, somebody like Jaden Quaintance, even a little bit more Amir Ali. That can fit in a little bit more to what you've seen, especially that defensive mindset that Bobby likes to bring. If I'm Sanon, I'm looking at, if I'm going within the Big 12, I mentioned BYU. I don't want this to happen. I'd love to keep Joson Sanon, but for a shooter and for somebody who had expectations to be going to the NBA next year, which I feel like that's all about dead.
Yeah.
Unless he wants to be an undrafted free agent or maybe a really late second round pick. I just don't see that.
That would be shocking.
Yeah, it would be shocking. And we have a couple sound bites that we'll get here, and Saul will jump on in a second. One of those sound bites from Sanon. So we'll hear from him. But it's going to be interesting to see who wants to come back and why.
100%. Yeah. And again, you still got to figure out the coaching situation, which we will talk about, us too, with Captain Redbeard, with Saul. We'll get into all of that, but I do want to give bottle service away right now to everybody watching. That's who's getting bottle service. It's the ASU fan base, because you all survived this season, and you've survived the last decade of Bobby Hurley basketball in Tempe. So pour yourself a drink. Go get a cheat meal. Go get like some ice cream. Go get a cupcake.
I ate so much pizza today.
You deserve it.
I ate so much Spanatos.
It, Rubus, after what you
really do.
sat through all season long, and your double time with Suns. Like,
God, it is really miserable.
You've watched a lot of really putrid basketball over the course of the last 8 months.
Agreed. And guess what?
Tell me what.
Sun season's still going, baby. So if you still want to see me, like, I don't know, like just crash out and hate on basketball.
Everyone needs a good crash out.
Yeah, every once in a while, not every night. Not every night.
Nan was in the chat saying, hate this take. Which take specifically?
Probably mine.
Your take
of BYU, probably.
I still think Sanon is more of a fit at Kansas. But we'll see.
More like Sansis.
Right? Okay. There you go. Look, we will get to sound from Sanon and company. We're going to get Saul Bookman in here and so much more on the other side of this second break. Guys, you're right. It's March, which means March Madness is here for everybody except the Arizona State Sun Devils.
It's
guys.
still March. They can watch it together.
Look, catch all the action at the BetMGM Sportsbooks over with our friends at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. They got the perfect setup for every single fan out there. They've got reserved seating at Wild Horse Pass and Santan Mountain. You can enjoy the excitement with open seating at Lone Butte and V Cueva. Make sure you bet on the madness and experience the thrill of everything that March Madness has to offer. It is quite literally the best time of the year. So go ask your boss, take the day off, go over to Gila River Resorts and Casinos for the day, and just have a day. Have yourself an evening, an afternoon, a weekend over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. And one thing that you always have to remember when we're talking about our friends over at Gila is that you do you. You always do you at Gila River Resorts Casinos. Make sure you visit playatgila.com for more details or check out the link in the description below.
You know, Totri mentioned get yourself a cheap meal. Maybe go out and just have a couple of drinks, but don't drive. Get in a Waymo. Not. Don't be stupid, okay? And Waymo makes it so easy because if you're by yourself or up to 3 of your closest friends, you step into a fully autonomous Jaguar all-pace vehicle, giving you constant zero-emission experience. You can get in there and you can play whatever song you want or your favorite Arizona State Sun Devils podcast. What did you think of that? And no driver to judge you for when we're talking about nonsense. Listen, Waymo is reliable, over 150,000 trips per week from San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Phoenix, and they have over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience. That is enough to drive to the moon and back 80 times.
That's a lot of times.
That is a lot of times. Plus spring training going on. Like you mentioned, you can go out to Gila River for the March Madness, watch parties and everything like that. Have some fun, relax, enjoy life, but do it safe. Download the Waymo One app and ride today.
Guys, do a solid. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're just now joining us, Arizona State falling to Kansas State 71-66 in that first round of the Big 12 tournament, effectively ending Arizona State's first season in the Big 12. And if you haven't noticed already, we're here. We were not in Kansas City by any means, freezing our tail off, having some maybe questionable barbecue, but we do have the book on the ground. Get it? Instead of boots on the ground. We had Saul Bookman over there. Saul, how you been, man? I feel like we haven't chatted ASU hoops in a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. First, it's 75 degrees here.
Really?
Yeah, really? It's hot as hell. I wore a jacket because I thought it was going to be cool, and it's not cool at all. It's really warm. So a lot of people are not even wearing sweaters or hoodies or anything like that. So go figure.
Global warming, huh?
I mean, I guess that's just the way that it is. Well, as much as I love the weather
I think maybe it's Totri's 70s porn stash that's just heating things up across the country.
Yeah. Wow, we got 60 seconds. We got 60 seconds in before there was a stash comment. You don't like the mustache, man?
Dude, I love it.
Okay.
Big fan of the 70s myself. I was a 70s baby. 79 baby.
There you go, man.
Saul, obviously you were able to talk to Bobby and Sanon after the game. We haven't been able to play the clips that you sent, so we'll get to that in a second. But what was the overall mood like at the post-game media availability after this tough loss?
I mean, honestly, like, just what are you going to do? You know, like, these guys were riddled with injury. They talked about, like, every time they felt like they found a little bit of momentum, somebody got hurt, and it was just constant. It was nonstop, you know, and so that was basically the takeaway that I had from what they had to say. Joson Sanon talked about that in the locker room. I went back there and spoke to him, and that was his big takeaway. It was just like, no matter what they did, you know, they couldn't find any momentum in the season, and it was kind of a mirror of what happened in this game. You know, it was like they started off rough, then they came back, took the lead, and then they gave the lead back up to all the way to 14, and then they came right back. And it just was like, but they just could never maintain that rhythm to try and really, you know, overcome Kansas State, and that's why they're going home.
Season definitely in a nutshell for Arizona State. I'm curious, obviously, you being there watching the game firsthand, obviously when it cuts to TV timeouts here, we don't get to see much. But for you, just what was kind of the mood and the attitude of Bobby Hurley on the court from start to finish of that game, and then obviously just you heard from him post game as well.
So I didn't hear all of his comments in the post game because I was in the locker room. I got towards the tail end of it, but he let me just say this: he looked like not defeated, but pretty subdued. I'll say that he was pretty subdued. Even on the sideline, he was pretty subdued today. Still had his moments where he had his usual, mannerisms and enthusiasm, but I think overall, like, just a frustrating season. And I don't think he's happy about it, obviously. And I saw him speaking afterwards, and he's not happy with any of this. But you can only deal with the cards that you're dealt, and I think he's wildly frustrated at not only tonight but also the rest of the season. And I think the players also reflected that.
I know you were also able to tune into Commissioner Brett Yormark's press conference earlier this morning. And like you mentioned, you can only really play with the cards you have. It feels like Arizona State fans now, all they have to do is look towards next season. Was there anything that stood out from that you feel like should be passed along to other, Big 12 basketball fans in general, but also ASU fans?
Yeah, actually quite a bit. First, the conference schedule next year is going to change from 20 to 18 games. And the reason for that was just, to kind of alleviate some of the travel, but also to try and find some opportunities for a little bit more rest during the season, because 20 games, and I think the longest stretch any team had was maybe 4 or 5 days off. That's a grind. And I think we felt it too as fans. Like, we're just like, my gosh, these games are intense, they're fun, but they're nonstop and they're consistent. And then, obviously there's other things that go into this, and they're escaping my head, of course, right at the time when I'm going to jump on and talk to you guys about this. But like that was one of the main things. They're going to look at the travel as well. But there's no promise that they're going to change the travel. And the question I brought up was just the one-offs, that one day or that one city trip that you have to make to, UCF or Iowa State. Those types of things, like, are they going to eliminate those? And basically what I came down with is I think they're going to take a look at the opportunities to be able to combine teams. So, like, you should have a Utah road swing. Like, that makes no sense to go to Utah, go all the way back home, and then have to come all the way back to BYU. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. For you guys, for us, Houston came, played Arizona, went back home, and then came back to play you guys on that Tuesday, which is just like, can you schedule a little bit better so teams don't really have to do that? You can just knock 2 out and go. I think that would be a little bit more beneficial. And then Cincinnati, West Virginia, that could be a swing as well. So those are the types of things that they were talking about overall. And then they were also looking at just overall in terms of the tournament structure. Everybody likes it. The feedback's been great in terms of the basically 2 rounds before you get to the top 4 seeds who have a bye. It's supposed to reward the top teams. But Yormark was in favor of expanding the NCAA tournament from 68 to 76, which I thought was a little interesting. I'm not on board with that, but Brett has his reasons, and the biggest reason he gave really is, listen, that's more opportunity, it's more revenue, and at the end of the day, it's all about the money, baby.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you on that, though. I don't think expanding it is necessarily what's best for the sport. I understand with the whole college football playoff expansion, everybody wants, more teams, more this, more that. I think when it comes to the NCAA tournament, I think expanding a field already that has so many teams almost makes it less rewarding for the teams that are actually already in it. And I'm curious how you feel. Obviously, the Wildcats, Arizona, they're a part of that double bye. Are you a fan of the double bye situation in this? I know you mentioned that everybody seems to really like that format that they have for this Big 12 tournament.
Oh, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Yeah, in again, they know what they're doing. Like, they want to give their 4 best teams the best opportunity to not fall on their face and cost themselves seeding or whatever, right? So, like, if you're a first day team, you're on your 3rd game by the time you got to play a top 4 seed in their first, right? So if Kansas State somehow beats Baylor tomorrow, like, they got to go on and they got to face a dog. Like, it is what it is. So you want your premier teams to have premier advantages. And so I'm okay with that. And listen, if the shoe was on the other foot, listen, you reap what you sow. You get what you deserve. And I would say the same thing on the other way. I wouldn't be complaining about if we had to play on the first day and we had a bad season. Like, it is what it is. And I think for the most part, the coaches and personnel, they've all been on board with this.
Well, I think that's all you could really have, right? Is that everybody's kind of in line on that.
Well, I'm sorry for not asking the most important question first. Did you like the court? What was it like in person?
He did like the court.
Dude, I love the court in person. But I could definitely see why people do not like it on TV, because it is not aesthetically pleasing on TV. It kind of hurts the eyes a little bit. I totally get that. But in person, I mean, the gray kind of slaps, dude. Like, I don't know how else to say it, man.
Is it better than the NBA courts that just from last year were all one color?
Yeah, way better. Like, there was some intention behind what they were doing, for sure.
I like that too. That there's actually intention behind it. Look, enough of us talking heads right now. There's a bunch of people in the chat, I'm sure, that want to hear from Bobby Hurley and Joson Sanon. So let's go ahead, take a listen as to what potentially the future still Arizona State head coach had to say.
Would you like me to set up these clips?
Please do. Please do.
Okay, so the first one's Bobby Hurley. It was the last question he had to answer. It's basically on if he felt like he was supported NIL-wise, and if he had, the means to be able to put a team that should have been much higher caliber on the floor, and if he feels confident in that moving forward.
We were supported, and we were able to go get, elite, guys in the portal like Bashir and Mace, and we brought in high-profile freshmen. Unfortunately, for the freshmen, they both at different stretches of the season had significant injury that they had to go through, and both of those guys were a big part of what we're doing. And so when I was saying that, I mean, like, we just have to do a better job of just having, just more options in case something happens with a key player that you try not to miss a beat, or you could overcome it to those players get back and healthy again. I didn't do the best job at ASU. Is not the problem whatsoever. They, really backed us to go out and put together a team that, should have been an NCAA tournament team, but we did not, get the job done in that regard.
And we've mentioned it. That was kind of what our thoughts were. The whole offseason was this team actually might be deep. This team might actually have players, and it just didn't work out that way.
No.
Yeah, it was kind of funny to hear all the players talk about, like, the depth and, being able to weather those storms. And I'm like, how many injuries can one team possibly weather? I mean, like, even if you go down to Tucson, if one or two guys, we had one guy in Krivas get injured, but, like, if we had one more guy go down, like that, you're playing with fire at that point. Like, and I think that's true for any team in the country. So I don't think it's necessarily about depth. I just think that, the quality of the players you guys have in terms of, what they were ready for, the ones that were ready played, and the ones that didn't were probably never going to play at all, ever, no matter what the circumstance was at all. So.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And you got the chance, like you mentioned earlier, to talk to one of those guys, Joson Sanon, obviously the 5-star freshman who, I mean, I think has had maybe as hot and cold of a season as you could possibly have in one season as a freshman. What did he say in that locker room?
I basically asked him, how did you feel about this season? Straight up, just simple question. Here you go.
We couldn't get that extra push for me to, like, get the win. A couple plays we messed up. Even including me on some of the ball screen plays, I could have fight over and, like, tried different things to, like, stop McDaniels from getting downhill and spraying out, And yeah, it's just a little things that we couldn't get by to win this game.
I'm sorry. It hurts.
I asked him about the game. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, interesting. Are we talking all season? We can do the ball screens and stuff. No, but you could tell how much, like, he's just gutted. He's just gutted about the season. Obviously, this is not the year that he wanted to have. It's not the year that Bobby wanted to have. It's not the year that any of these guys realistically wanted to have in their first year in a new conference, in a competitive conference, like Bobby said, right? This is a roster that he felt was an NCAA tournament roster. I think at moments we saw that vision at times, Ultimately, I think between injuries, between coaching, and maybe some other things, they obviously fell short. But coaching for me, and I think for the fan base, is really the topic of discussion right now. Obviously, multiple reports today that Bobby Hurley is expected to return. I say expected to not be fired. Expected to not be fired. I really put that with an emphasis. Before we get you out of here, Saul, I'm curious just your thoughts, your opinions on what Arizona State does moving forward with Bobby Hurley.
Well, listen, I think the major thing that has been the crutch or the Achilles heel of Bobby Hurley is just the inconsistent play on his teams. You might have a great defensive team, but they can't shoot for anything. They might be mid on defense. They can score decently well, but they've never had, they've never been able to put it all together. I keep going back to this. At Buffalo, he had a really good roster, really good team. He left to take the ASU job, and Nate Oates takes over at Buffalo. Who does Nate Oates beat in the first round of the tournament? These guys. And they beat DeAndre Ayton and the Pac-12 champion Arizona Wildcats in that first round, and lose to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Kevin Knox in the next game. Talk about it back-to-back. You know what I mean? Like, I know, right? Crazy. I was just thinking about that. I was like, wait, holy crap, that is true. Yeah. Just wild. And I'm looking at Bobby Hurley's teams, and I just look, and even when I watched you guys play, there's this herky-jerkiness that I constantly feel watching ASU basketball. Like, there's no rhythm. There's no smooth play. Every now and then you guys get stretches, but it just has been very, very frustrating from a basketball perspective to watch the style. And I think that's something that if you're an athletic director like Graham Rossini, if you know ball, and you got to evaluate that, and you got to figure out, like, does he really know what pieces he wants to put together and what kind of style of play he wants to play? Because right now it doesn't feel like ASU necessarily has an identity that is through and through. Kelvin Sampson has been at Houston for the same amount of time as Bobby Hurley, and Kelvin Sampson is coaching one of the premier teams in the country because Kelvin Sampson knows exactly what the identity of the type of player that he wants to bring in and what the program is supposed to stand for, through and through, not even a debate. And I think that's the model going forward. And so you got to identify Bobby Hurley as that guy. And if he's not, he's only got 1 year left on his deal. And everybody knows in college sports, 1 year deal is a dead man walking deal. So either he's going to get an extension, and I think this is where you guys were like, he's not going to get fired, but he might end up leaving if he gets another opportunity, or maybe he voluntarily resigns, or whatever the case may be, just because no coach wants to play or coach for 1 year on a 1 year deal. That just is not a good opportunity.
1,000%. Saul, we really appreciate you being out there, our book on the ground in Kansas City. Where can everybody at home follow you? ASU fan, Wildcat fan, doesn't matter. Where can everybody follow you on social?
Listen, if you just love ball, you can just follow me at Saul_Bookman on Twitter and on Instagram. Appreciate you guys. Thank you humbly for allowing me to jump on your show.
And make sure you watch Outside Shots with Eddie Johnson.
Is this my debut?
No, I feel like I've had you on before. Before I had the porn stash, I've had you on. Yeah, 100%.
You definitely walked into the show while you were in office. You definitely walked into the show and had
I've definitely done that before, but I don't know if I've ever been on the show. I don't know. I think it's my debut. But hey, anyway, anything for you guys. Appreciate y'all. Love you. Keep up the great work. We'll see y'all.
Appreciate you, Book. Have a good one, man. Guys, do us a solid. Do Book a solid. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. We are going to continue talking about the question of the day. Is Bobby Hurley back? Is he going to get fired? Is he going to get canned? Is he going to go somewhere else? But we're going to do it after our final break.
Like I mentioned, you want to celebrate tonight, but maybe you don't want to go out. Maybe you just want to relax. Maybe you haven't been sleeping because you are afraid of this season, and now you're ready for sleep. Maybe you need to be uplifted. Well, if you want any of those feelings, Pure Edibles are the edibles for you, because yes, of course, they're gonna get you high, but at the same time, they're gonna tell you exactly how you're going to feel. And that's always the biggest problem, and I've had this problem with edibles my whole time of consuming them, is if you bounce around to different types and things, you don't know how it's going to make you feel. Yeah. One sativa gummy might make you feel different than another sativa
These
gummy.
are facts, by the way.
Like, I'm not even kidding, right? 10 milligrams of something might feel different than 10 milligrams of something else, right? Pure Edibles is consistent. They have clearly labeled tins on exactly how you're going to feel. Plus, they are designed to be ripped or bit in half, making them easily shareable or easy to dial in your exact dose, which is the most important part of edibles. Go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries across Arizona.
Guys, look, you know what goes great with edibles? I'm going to keep it real here. Pizza.
Dude, you know what goes great with anything?
Spinatos.
Amen.
Pizza.
I've had a whole Spinatos pizza today myself.
And I love that for you.
I do too.
I really do love that for you. That's going to be me tomorrow. I mentioned it the other day. It's my girlfriend's birthday tomorrow. And literally for the last 2 weeks, she's been telling me, hey, we are getting Spinatos pizza on
smart person.
Her birthday. So that's exactly what we're doing. But you don't have to celebrate her birthday like I am. Go just celebrate whatever day of the week it is with our friends over at Spinatos. Also, if you are a Suns fan, first off, I'm sorry. Second of all, Spinatos Pizza is the place to be for Suns fans. Look, they're hosting official watch parties throughout the year where you guys can watch a game not only with Phoenix Suns dancers, but also the gorilla itself, guys.
And we will be doing a PHNX Suns watch party on March 28th.
Over at Spinatos. I love it. Absolutely love it. And look, they've got some games too. If you got a decent jump shot, you got to enter Spinatos Pizza Competition. We've all played horse on the basketball court. Some maybe better than others, but at Spinatos, they don't spell horse. They spell pizza. Okay? Get all the info on the watch parties and pizza basketball contest over at SpinatosPizzeria.com. Spinatos, the official pizza of the Phoenix Suns.
And when we're talking about events, want to put everybody on game. This Friday, before ASU Hockey's first NCHC tournament, we are doing an absolutely free get-together pre-game patio party for PHNX Hockey at Mullet Arena, March 14th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. right before puck drop. Again, 100% free. Come hang out with us at the PHNX Hockey crew. It's going to be so much fun. Plus,
I think I'm going to be there, by the way.
Plus a little tease.
Ooh, we got a tease?
I believe I have a Suns game, so I don't know if I can be there.
Tease.
But I will be doing an interview tomorrow that will be airing on tomorrow's show.
Love it.
For those of you who have not dipped your toe into the ASU hockey world yet or haven't been following around with the regular season, such an electric program, such a fun time. And I'm going to have a special guest who's going to come and update everybody on everything, give you the lowdown on how this tournament works and how you can watch it. And if you want to come hang out in person, again, March 14th, that's this Friday at Mullet Arena from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Come hang out with PHNX Hockey and PHNX Sun Devils.
I love it. I love it. Tony Tigre in the chat saying PHNX Puffs to forget this season.
PHNX Puffs this Sunday, March 16th.
Ooh, a little Sunday edition. Huh?
And then the next one on March 22nd. So late night this Sunday. And then I think it's going to be
doing a PHNX Puffs the day after our 24-hour stream?
Yes.
Wow.
And I'll be doing a PHNX Puffs after the Suns game on Sunday. So PHNX Puffs unite.
Why don't we just do a PHNX Puffs on the 24-hour stream at like 2 a.m?
You know, I like the way you think.
I mean, come on now. What are we talking about?
I'll have to run it by the powers that be over at Colt Cannabis.
Yes, and I guess maybe the powers that be in this office.
No.
Probably no.
Just the powers to be at Colt.
That's fair.
Speaking of powers to be, will there be a power to be?
Will there be a power to be at Arizona State? That is the question of the day. Again, multiple reports coming out today, Tuesday, March 11th, the first day of the Big 12 tournament, that Bobby Hurley is, quote, not expected to be fired and potentially be back next season. But you heard Saul Bookman say it during our discussion, and it's something that's been brought up to me in a number of discussions that I've had with folks at Arizona State who have some knowledge of the situation. That, again, that is something to keep in mind, that it doesn't sound like he's getting an extension. He would be heading into the last year of his contract, which is something that no coach, especially in college sports, aims to do in this era of college athletics, because you are treated as if you are a lame duck coach. Does Arizona State move forward with Bobby Hurley? That's the question. Erik, do you have the answer?
Reporter Erik, which doesn't exist, does not. Opinion Erik does. Please, God, no. Unless, and I'll say this, and I put this out there, the way that this is being framed means that something can change somebody's mind. And it's not this season, because there's nothing that could have been done today that could have changed Bobby Hurley's status at ASU, right? Nothing. So my thought is, do they see if maybe Bobby can go land a big fish? Maybe the biggest fish. Maybe the biggest local fish. Maybe a Koa Pete. And if Bobby can land Koa Pete and retain some of the talent that can be retained on this team, do you let him play out his final year and tell him you will get an extension if you get to blank tournament, right? If you advance to this stage. That is the only thing that makes sense to me, because all the reporting, and let me get one thing clear. I trust everybody who's reporting this. I trust you. I've worked with Gambo. I trust Gambo. I trust Chris Cartman. I trust everybody who's talked about this. But there is some really weird phrasing about all of this. The not expected to be fired and all, is he going to leave? Is he going to transition to being a GM? Because that's happening in college basketball now. These are all things that it makes me almost hate that we're doing this, because there was no clear and definite answer. And I don't want this to turn into a situation where it's there's this weird energy looming over this program, even if Bobby is retained. Having him just come back and coach one season, you're going to get the best Bobby Hurley. I don't know. It's just all weird. And I would rather just have a clean cut and break. And I've been saying that for a long time.
I was told a long time ago, and when I say a long time ago, the season has felt like a long time.
So 6 days ago?
This was a little over a month ago. I was told that Bobby Hurley would not be fired, that there would be other things that would ultimately play out, right, in terms of Hurley coming back or not coming back. But I was told a while ago that he would not be fired, that it would be, there would be different phrasing around it. So to have the reports out today that say that he is not expected to be fired doesn't necessarily still say that he is going to be back at Arizona State next season. There are a number of people who have reported the same thing, that he's not expected to be fired, who have even doubled down saying cannot confirm that this means he will be back as the coach next season.
So weird.
Right? So there are a number of different ways you could take it. Are you, quote unquote, going to part ways with Bobby Hurley? Is there going to be a mutual parting of ways? Are you praying and hoping that there's another university out there that sees a $3-point-something million buyout and says, hey, we can get Bobby Hurley maybe on the low, right?
I don't know.
I think there are certainly programs out there that see the way that he recruits and thinks, okay, maybe we could do something with that. Maybe that's an option. Maybe another school poaches him. Maybe he decides that it's time to leave Arizona State, right? That's something that I don't think has been discussed very much when it comes to
Sure, he's been very
ASU.
frustrated this season.
So, there are a number of different ways that this can play out. I am still not sold on the idea that Bobby Hurley will be back at Arizona State next season. I have reached out to a couple of folks that I'm still waiting to hear back pretty much on Bobby Hurley's future at ASU. So if you're a member of the PHNX Die Hard Discord, then you 100% will get that information as soon as I have it. But
which,
again,
by the way, we're having a sale on Die Hard memberships. $36 for free agency frenzy. Go phnx.com/join.
We're going to call it the Hurley Frenzy.
The Hurley Frenzy?
The Hurley Frenzy at this point.
You also have to remember, with Ray, with Herm,
still on the pay.
These
payroll.
are not coaches and administrators that were what? Fired.
Correct.
But they no longer do what?
Work here.
Phrasing, and here's a media lesson for everybody. Words matter.
Correct.
Phrasing matters. Again, I've worked with probably the most well-known newsbreaker in this state. Not expected to be fired is very different than Bobby Hurley's coaching this team next year.
Correct.
And
then Bobby Hurley will be back next year.
Correct. And I do think that you are completely right in the fact that I think in all of this, Bobby has been here for a decade. This has probably been he said it's the most frustrating season. Fan support is not there right now. And Bobby's made plenty of money. Bobby has coached plenty. I'm sure Bobby still wants to be involved in basketball, but there might be a point where he just goes, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this is on the table. We don't know for sure. I know where my opinion stands, and I will say this. If it is Koa, Pete, and Bobby or nothing, that might make me reconsider. But that has to be it. That is the only... that Koa Pete might be the number 1 pick in next year's draft. That is the only thing to me that would make it understandable to bring him back. And even then, I wouldn't want an extension, which why would he want that?
Yeah.
So that it's interesting, but at the same time, like, we will keep you up to date. Nobody is doing the amount of shows that we are doing about this program. Nobody is in our diehard Discord informing people like Anthony Totri is. Like, there are
literally,
things,
as soon as I hear it, I tell y'all. So
yeah. And by the way, if you're watching on TV, the party always continues over at gophnx.com. But there are things that we don't share on this show.
It's a good question, Feedback.
That we share in our Discord.
Correct.
And Feedback says, serious question, won't he just waste Koa Pete then? Koa Pete might be the type of guy who can't be wasted. I'm gonna be completely honest.
I guess we might see.
We might see. And that's the thing is, this story is far from over.
Far from over. Again, I want to double down on it. Was told as soon as 2025 started, or at least a month and a half ago, that Bobby Hurley would not be fired. I was told there would be different words around it, right? Whether that means he's coming back, whether that means he's retiring, whether that means he goes to a new school, whether that means there's a parting of ways, it's still to be determined. I'm not sold on what I've seen as of right now. But again, that is just, I guess, Totri's 2 cents.
There you go.
The
way to wrap
day.
that up, huh?
That's what I do. That's what I do. You have any final thoughts on this season? Do you want to save it for tomorrow?
I mean, dude, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it tomorrow, but like, I feel like, and I feel like this way with Suns, and I know I keep on meshing these two together. If you guys don't know, I do the Sun show too. I just feel like it's the same thing over and over again. It's just a broken record, bad coaching, really bad luck. Here we are. What do you do going forward? That's it.
Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you what you do going forward.
Please.
And how we're going to beautifully tie up this show today. And we're going to do it with closing time. Presented by the Carol Royce team, your home sold guaranteed realty, where Carol's going to guarantee to sell your home for 100% of market value, or she's going to pay you the difference. That's right. Learn more at carolroyceteam.com. This one you really had to think about. You really had to think about, okay, how are we going to really close off the end of the season with closing time this time? Well, Captain Redbeard, throw it up there on the screen. This is how we're doing it, with 3 words: in the books. That's right. Arizona State's first season in the Big 12. Maybe it didn't go the way you wanted. Maybe it didn't go the way you expected. Maybe it did, depending on who you're a fan of. But at the end of the day, it is in the books. That's a wrap on the Arizona State basketball season, and that's a wrap on tonight's PHNX Sun Devils postgame show. Hit that like button on the way out. Make sure you are subscribed to PHNX Sports on YouTube. And if you enjoyed the content, give us a follow at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me at Anthony_Totri. You can follow this guy right here, Mr. Do-It-All. That is Erik Ruby at
That's the best nickname you've ever given me.
That is Erik with a K on social. You can follow the captain of this lovely ship, Captain Redbeard, at K-Coop Sports. And just because the season's over doesn't mean we won't see you tomorrow at 1 in the afternoon. Be there or be square. But as always, despite the season being over, go Devils. And peace.
We all silly like the mayor.